Right, watcher, welcome back. Let's show you what I've got. I think you're going to rather like this. Welcome to a new episode in the Street Fighter build. A fresh direction, something as unique, hopefully, as the nose cone was. Time for the belly pan. Welcome back to Delboy's Garage. Okay. Ready for this? I hope so. As you can see, I haven't opened this yet either. This is not contrived. I sent off for something to help me with the belly pan, and I sincerely hope it's the right thing. Let me show you what we're going to do. Right, confused? I thought you would be. So yeah, true enough, they've sent me a Kawasaki ZX-7R petrol tank, which you might think a bit confusing, but think about it. Watch. How much like a belly pan does that look? Think about it that way. Up under the engine is a belly pan. Up here for thinking. Now obviously there's a little bit to do. Let's give you a close look at the tank. Right, so here's the plan. What I've got an idea to do is, when you look at this, this is the standard tank. Look at the width of the tank and look at the width of the engine. It's in. The engine would fit inside that width. Also, I looked at this curvature here. That's that curvature there. And thinking about that curvature there of the pipes and how that would fit roughly to that also. And the fact that this comes down where you can cut it off wherever you need to come up and meet the underside of the radiator. So going right across there to protect the shiny pipes. So there's the idea. The thinking is to put a fuel tank down there underneath the bike, hopefully coming up to maybe sort of here, about that line there, and make a half decent belly pan. Now for those of you who don't know, and oddly enough not everybody knows because not everybody's as old as me, Back in the 80s, there were a thing that we often had called bikini fairings, and a bikini fairing simply meant a belly pan down the bottom and a nose cone, so the top half and bottom half like a bikini. And as I've got this, and as that's a bit ugly and the pipes are a bit diminutive under there, and the radiator sort of ends a bit suddenly there, and there's no lines to it, I thought of keeping the original factory fairing, but I've seen the original factory fairings cut off, trimmed back so that they form a belly pan, and they're just like, you've got your factory fairing and trimmed it back to look like a belly pan. Doesn't, not imaginative. I'm just hoping that this might work. Now, we scored this from eBay, had a look around. Oddly enough, I've just discovered this, cheeky monkey. The bloke had this up for £80, including postage. The postage itself was about 15, so we offered him £50 all in, minus his 15. So we offered him 35 quid and he declined it, and it was a ping pong. It was a back and forth offer. He had it up for buy now or make best offer. So I kept making best offers, and we got to the point where I offered him £50 for it, including postage, which was 35 quid according to his postage. Looking at his package, looking at his postage here, he's paid, wherever it is, about 12 quid for postage, so he didn't make anything on that. And what we've received for our money, we got for 35 quid. I couldn't go up to Leeds where this was at the breakers and get it, and the photos were a little bit better looking than the tank, so it's a bit of a shame. We've got a little dent there which we've got to deal with. Just going to tap that out, that's not too hard. Where else is there? There's a little crease there, but that will be literally underneath the bike, so that won't matter. And there's some scars and scabs and scuffs. But the great thing is, what I'm happy with, very happy, is the principle is I'm going to cut the bottom out. So all this, everything under there, that's all getting cut out and removed. I'm going to do that today. It's going to get the Dremel and literally slice that under section out, and that's coming out all together. I'll probably keep the steel just as scrap so I can use it, because I'm going to weld anything to this. That steel is the best thing because it's exactly the same thickness and it will weld nicely. So all this has got to be cut around this line in there. I'll come to that in a minute. And then I can get to the inside of all this. So any of these little deals, I can dolly and tap them out. What I'm happy with is it's a good honest tank. I didn't pick it because it was red. That's irrelevant. It's going to be painted the same as the rest of the bike. But it's honest. There isn't a big spank dent in the side which contains 1.5 pounds of filler that when you knock it out it's this horrible hole or something. You know, it's a good honest tank. It's one of the original ones. I think it's a little bit earlier. It's 96 to 2003. There's the same tank for that whole period. I think this is off an earlier bike because that Ninja there I think is a bit different. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It's sacrificial. All that's going to get sliced off. All this back end. How much of that I use will be dictated by where the radiator hits it, you know. So that's the idea today, is to make a start on this. Let's put you back up on the podium. Hang on a minute. Put you on your pedestal. There we go. That's it. Right. So there we are. You see the plan. I hope you like the idea. It was a bit mad. Penny's idea, actually. We were talking about it. I said I need something that I can kind of half use as a belly pan. Taking sheet metal, I thought of making a frame, like I did with the console, and then the t-shirt cloth, and then the fiberglass, and dum-de-dum. But then quite rightly, the point is it gets hot. Those header pipes underneath there are going to get very hot. That's not normally a problem because you have a plastic belly pan around them anyway, and that heat can be managed with lining it with heat-proof or heat-insulating material. But I don't really want to have to do that. I want it steel, and I want to paint it in a heat-proof paint, or at least the base layer, so that it protects the paint, the surface that's going to go on top. Da-de-da. So I wanted it steel. I wanted something that I can tape that's 50% there and do the rest. I'm going to cut it out, trim it to shape, then make a frame for the inside of it. So I'm going to make brackets to bolt it to the motor, and so it's detachable, obviously, for servicing. It's 1,000,000 to 1 that hole will fall exactly where the sump plug is. It might, you never know, we'll get to that. If it does, then I should just cut that out and have it as a hole to access the sump plug, which will be completely mad. I love it, I love the idea. I hope you, like I said, I hope you do too. Today, all I want to do is strip this, get all the paint off it. I'm normally very, very anti-paint stripper. I don't like chemical paint strippers because they stay in the metal, they get into the grains of the metal, into the tiny scratches, and if you don't wash them out with thinners thoroughly, then they'll come back and haunt you when you start painting. They'll work their way out through your finished paint. So therefore all I have to do is clean it off thoroughly, don't I? And I'm going to do that as well. So today's task, 2 tasks. Slice the bottom of this out to give me just the top half, because I don't want to be messing about with all this under here. Let me get to the inside, possibly slice the cap out as well, and then strip the paint off it so that I can get this in bare metal by the end of the video and offer it up under the motor and give you a proper look at what my stupid idea is. This may actually be nothing. This was 50 quid. I thought it was worth a punt. If it doesn't work, I'd have spent that much on materials to make the frame and the fiberglass version anyway, and then again some, because the materials for that console currently stand at £100. So this is actually an economical way to do it, because all it will need, once it's in shape, once it's welded the brackets so it could just be bolted on, it will just get painted. So it will just be a little bit of filler here and there to fill these little pings and dings, and then a layer of that silver, and then move on to the tailpiece. Right, enough waffle, let's slice the bottom out. Right. Now something else in amongst it, just want to say thank you as well publicly for this, because we get the patron support, which you know we do. We can now and again invest in things that are not materials for the job. And what we've managed to do, which I've wanted for ages and ages and ages and ages, repeat many times, to get a Dremel, proper Dremel 4000 with the flexi head, all the tools with it that it needs. This is going to be a really, really useful tool for the garage, because this kind of job, slicing the bottom of that out, it's quite delicate. Using a big ass grinder, it can be dangerous, because you can end up, apart from the fact that it can set fire to whatever might be left inside, it still smells very faintly of petrol in there. Now, don't think there's any in there. It's bone dry and it's been off the bike for a long time by the look of it. But you know, it's better to have that tiny wheel doing it quietly than it is to have a big ass disc. So that's a bit safer and it's a bit more accurate. And when I come to shaping this around bolts and brackets and things, because obviously altering that up under the engine, there's going to be issues, and you'll see as we go along. And those issues will be just getting it to fit. It will clout against something on the engine. So to cut a little hole there for that to protrude through the fairing panel, that would be great. It would just look really cool, really professional, but you need to make a perfectly accurate hole. Can't do that with a clumsy 4-inch grinder. Can do it with the Dremel, with the little tiny tools you've got. So that was part of the concept of this. Get the Dremel, and then I can cut that out and make a really good job. So thank you to the patrons and to the support for the general channel, because obviously we still get AdSense. That all goes towards it. Now we've got the ability to expand the tool collection, the toolkit, so that I can do things I couldn't do before. So today, I'm going to experiment with this. Or experiment with the Dremel, cutting the base out of this. Same soft for it. See, it's soft. Right, there you go. Right, all set up now. Just going to use. Come on over. Right, just to show you what we've got, just using a Dremel 4000. Dremel 4000 is it's the highest level of the range without going into cordless. I always work in here, I do everything in here, I don't need cordless. You get better performance from corded tools anyway. So I don't need the cordless version, which saved a little bit of money, but I got all the different connections and I got a flexi head with it as well. So later on when I'm doing this, show you. Get this flexible head thing, which that connects to the Dremel, and then that head becomes almost like a wand. You can just cut little tiny, engrave with it, literally. You can do engraving, there's little tiny heads for it and all sorts. But my favourite thing about a Dremel is the nasty little cutting head, 1 mil, not even a mil thick. That's super tiny, and that's going to make a lovely thin, accurate cut. So what I'm going to do is try and bring you in close on a little bit of this. I'm just going to try and slice the tank out. In relation to this, let's bring you in close. Hang on. Zoom. Hold tight. Here we go. That's the one. Well, as you can see, I've made a little test cut just here, and this thing's amazing. It literally just slices through it like butter. It's incredible. and I want to go through this line. This is a pressed seam. It's been seam welded all the way along, so you've got the base and the top are 2 separate pieces of sheet metal, and I want to cut along that line, mainly because where possible I want to keep this curvature, this visible I want to keep this curve here and make that part of the feature. There's no point in cutting here and then having to make an edge, because that comes up, it will just be a cut edge. That turned in lip is nice, but beyond there I don't need it. So this recess, this crevice right in the corner, is going to be my perfect guided cut line, all the way down, all the way around. Coming to this part, where the tank tap, the filler tap or petcock was, that's where the tap goes through. That's one piece. I'm going to have to do some creative cutting in there because I may not get through it, but I'm just going to come across there for now and join this, and I can finesse it later when I need to. So that's enough chat, let's get stuck in. Right, as you can see, due to that, hang on, save it out, I'm going to get it in a minute. Due to the Dremel discs, those little tiny 38mm discs, they last literally, well, one disc lasted from there to there. That's it. So learning as we go. If I was going to do this, I'd have got a dozen discs ready. And they're only pennies, they don't cost much. So I only had 2 with the kit. So I've saved the other one for releasing. So what I've done, just gone around it with the big 4-inch grinder and the diamond disc. It's a bit of a shame because I wanted to do the whole thing with a lovely accurate cut, but I haven't got enough discs, so I want to crack on with it. I can clean it up anyway, it's just flat disc and clean that edge. So I've cut it out, I've just got a few little points where it's still touching, and I'm going to finish those with the Dremel disc just to get the whole thing released and get the base out. We learn as we go. And what's using for that was a diamond disc. It's the kind of disc you use for concrete. It's like that. Now, one of them, and in this, it's a 1 mil thick, and right in this cutting edge, it has little bits of diamond impregnated in it. There's not too many left now, but that's brilliant. I've had that for years. Just does the job. Right, let's get on with it. Right, okay, learning as we go. Hang on, I know that's about to sound weird. Cut that out now. As you can probably see already, you see the point, you see the principle of that being a possible belly pan. There we are. Next thing is to cut this out. That's no use like that. It's going to impede on the bottom of the engine, so I'm going to spin around that with what's left of that final disc. Cut that out. Hang on a minute, you back up. As you can see, it eats those cutting blades in seconds, so you're going to need a box of 100 if you're going to do anything like this. See if I can get the big disc in there. Right, here we are, let's give you a close look. Clip. Right, let's have a look at this. Okay, I think you can see, let's bring it back up, the zoom image. Right, I think you can see the belly pan kind of concept there, hopefully. Don't know whether it'll work or not, remains to be seen, but it was worth a go. So I've got all this cut. I think you can see straight away, God, the amount of grief to get this out. With a little Dremel cutting disc, if I'd had more, you just hold it kind of that way when the disc is then flat, and you just spin around the outside and get a nice clean cut. And that would be a clean cut. But trying to put a disc in that way with a big grinder, you see the mess, the grief. I'm absolutely covered in dust, and the mess here. This lip edge, it's in place in most places, but where you kind of have to cut, this is where you end up with, where the disc has got to go around a corner, the big 4-inch disc, it kind of just touches through. So I'll have to lose that and come under there. But then again, I'm not so sure about that, so I may just come the whole thing under there. So, you know, leave that there, that little thing on the front, just. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll leave that there for now, just to hold it with and move it around with, really, while I'm messing about with it. Right, all it leaves to do now is strip the paint off that, because it's just ugly and horrid. So I'm going to get cleaned up, get prepared for this, and then whack that over in paint stripper, start getting it melting. Right, okay, explanation time. Now, yesterday, Friday, I spent 3 or so hours on the tank, just giving it a little bit more attention. I flattened it down. I used a whole tin of spray putty, which is like filler primer. I know a lot of you recommended that, so I thank you for that recommendation. I always thought it was a bit cheating really, but hey, it went off easy. I just laid it over, blocked it back down, and I've put another half a tin of silver on there. There's still more to do, and I will show you a walk around when that is done, but I'm going to be doing all that off camera. That won't be something for a video. So this, now I really hope you like this idea. It is as mad as a box of frogs, but honestly, you got to try, ain't you? Eh? You dares wins, Rodney. The point is, if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. It was £50. I can do something else with it. I can use it as a tank cover. I can do something daft like I did on the Bandit. I could cut the sides out of it and use them as a suspended side on that. There's loads of scope. It's not going to be wasted, you know. Everything is used, and I think that's a brilliant idea. So I'm going to roll with it for now. So I appreciate your consideration on it. Just bear with me. A lot of you said on this right at the beginning, oh, that's mad, what you're doing a stupid console for, but many of you have come back later since and said, actually, yeah, it really works. So bear with me. This will work too. It just needs a little bit of time. It won't even be that exact shape. I'm going to do some shaping at the front, which will make it look more like a belly pan and a bit less like a tank, so it's kind of off and off. Right, paint stripper. Okay, the paint stripper I've decided to use for this is not, as you saw, it's this stuff. It's not Nitromors. This stuff is Bartolene TX10 paint and varnish stripper. Now this stuff is a safe kind of children's version, okay? Obviously it's not, but the point is it's a very mild-mannered version of paint stripper. Now the chosen default paint stripper these days is Nitromors. Everybody just buys a tin of Nitromors. It strips everything off everything, but there is a problem with it. If you know the product, if you've understood the product and the chemicals within it, you'll understand it. You couldn't use a worse thing on a paint job. First of all, in this environment, I've got painted surfaces everywhere, from my toolbox to the bikes, to my Harley, to her Triumph, to this, which has cost me 146 hours as of today. So why would I want to trash any of that? Honestly, one flick, one ping, one stray little drip when you're painting and spreading it on is all it takes. And that lands, a little piece of gel, lands on your paintwork, and it'll just bore its way to China. It is nasty, evil stuff. Now the problem with it is a fundamental difference between Nitromors and this. Now there are other versions of this, but I'm just going to refer to this. This is the paint stripper you might use on your skirting boards and your doors and all that, da-da-da. It's recommended to take an hour to work. That's an hour minimum. Put Nitromors on and you can watch it react. It all crinkles up. It's that vicious. Now I'm a bit surprised really that we're allowed to have it in this day and age. You know what it's like. You're not even allowed to have an 100-weight bag of cement anymore because you might hurt yourself. It has to be half 100-weight or whatever it is, kilos. So this is the point. In this world of safety, I'm surprised Nitromors even exist. It's pretty evil. But I'm just going to get to the point here. The fundamental problem with this is it's not neutralizable. What it means is this stuff, if I wash that with water when it's done, it washes it all off. But it also does something else. It neutralizes its paint stripping effect. It changes its role. It's no longer a paint stripper. It becomes just water. So if I put a teaspoon of that in water and mix it in, and then tested the acid qualities with litmus paper, none. None at all. It's no longer acidic. The water neutralizes it completely. It turns it off. It stands it down. It sends it home for a rest. There is no acidic paint stripping quality once you've washed that in water. And that's what I want. Because not just for the purpose of use in here, it's a slow acting stuff, as you can see, there's been 2 hours already, but also it's something you can switch off and neutralize. So when you wash anything with this, that's had this on it, it's absolutely harmless. The problem with Nitromors, nothing turns it off. Nitromors' acidic quality is there forever. If you put a teaspoon of it in a 2-gallon bucket of water, left it for a month, test a litmus test, it would still be acidic and quite strong as well. It is a nasty stuff. It continues to be acid. So you've got to wash it off. You've got to make sure that it's all off that surface. And yeah, people go on about you can wash it with thinners and all that, but hey, hang on, thinners? Really? Thinners is evil. And if there's anything on there, the thinners will etch into it. If there's anything soft on there, like a little bit of paint left behind, the thinners will etch into that and stay there. Then when you spray it, if you haven't noticed it, if you're a little bit lax in your attention to detail, when you spray it, that thinners packed piece of remaining material will sit there like a little bastard, and when you paint it, it will react and pop back out again. It will just climb out of the paint surface. And if you've ever done painting, you should know all this. There's probably professional painters now just nodding and shaking their head and oh, the horrors. You know what it's like. So I don't use Nitromors because it comes back to haunt you every single bloody time I've used it. I will not have it in the garage even because it's just too tempting to reach for it. So it's great, it's really effective if all you want is a bare metal finish to leave outside. But no, if you can paint over the metal that you've put the Nitromors on, my God, you've got to do something to make sure that metal is completely inert, because no matter what you put on it, these specialist barrier coats, the House of Colour stuff as a barrier coat, none of it works. If you put it over a tiniest little residue of Nitromors, it will work its way through. It might take a month, but a month later, it'll start crinkling off, and that's just horrible because when my friend Mackie Bass comes, Mackie runs Cambridge Pinstriping. I've been talking about him for a long time. He's going to be doing the airbrush paint job on this, and it's going to be close on £1,000 worth of paintwork. Honestly, is it really worth it? Is it worth risking it? No. So what I've done instead, I'm using the good old Grandad Slow stuff. This is the stuff your granddad would use to do the skirting boards or the gate in the garden or whatever. Takes off varnish, paint stripper, it's used for boats, that sort of thing, but it's non-vicious and it's neutralizable, whereas Nitromors is not neutralizable. It stays active forever. Once that's done, it goes to like takes about 48 hours, goes like a rubbery, leathery finish, and you just peel it off with a scraper, rinse it with water, guaranteed. Not a single thing on there, absolutely clean. So it's a lot safer, that's why I've used that. There we go. So I'm going to leave you with the wall of friends, a little show around what we did today, and thank you so much for your amazing support. I wish I could have got that in bare metal today, but drying times, a bit like when you paint things, I have to leave it like that. But the next video, you'll see that get stripped off with the scraper, cleaned back with a wire wool or a Scotch-Brite or something, and then we'll offer it up to the bike and you can see what it'll actually look like. How mad is that, eh? The tank is a belly pan. What are you on? See you next time.